Today, we're going to talk about something very important for your English speaking. We are going to talk about conversations because for many English learners, the biggest problem is not starting a conversation. The biggest problem is continuing a conversation. Many learners can say hello. They can say, how are you? They can say, my name is, but after that, something happens. There is silence. There is stress. There is panic. They think, what should I say now? They feel their mind is empty. They feel their English disappears. This is what we call freezing mid-conversation. Today, we are going to fix this. We are going to build something called the conversation engine. This is a simple way to keep your English conversations alive, natural, and flowing. You will learn how to ask follow-up questions. You will learn how to mirror what the other person says, how to use expansion phrases to talk more about what you have said. I will explain everything in simple, clear English, and I will give you many examples. By the end of this episode, you will not only speak English, but you will move conversations forward. Let's begin. Okay, let's start with something very simple. A conversation is not a test. It is not about showing perfect English. It is about showing interest. Native speakers are not good at conversations because they know more grammar. They are good because they show interest in the other person. And showing interest is something you can learn. Now, let's look at a very simple conversation. Someone says, I work in a hospital. I work in a hospital. Many learners reply, oh, okay, and then silence. But a native speaker does something different. They use the conversation engine. They say something like, oh, really? What do you do there? Or, oh, that sounds interesting. Are you a doctor or a nurse? Or, is it busy? You see the difference? The native speaker does not end the conversation. They open it. This is the first key idea. Now let's begin with the first part of the engine. Follow-up questions. A follow-up question is a question that comes after what the other person says. Not a new topic, not a random question, but a question connected to their words. This is one of the strongest conversation skills you can learn. Let's practice with many examples. Someone says, I live in London. I live in London. A bad reply would be, oh, and that's it. Good replies are, oh, really? Which part? Or, how long have you lived there? How long have you lived there? Or, do you like living there? Do you like living there? Or, Is it expensive? Is it expensive? All of these are follow-up questions. They show interest. They keep the conversation moving. Now another example. Someone says, "I'm learning English." You can reply, "Oh, nice. How long have you been learning?" How long have you been learning? Or, why are you learning English? Do you enjoy it? What is difficult for you? What is difficult for you? You see what's happening? You're not thinking about grammar. You're thinking about curiosity. Follow-up questions are not difficult. They are simple, but they are powerful. Now let's look at another example. Someone says, "I went to Spain last year." You can say, "Oh, really? Which city did you visit?" Which city did you visit? Or, how was it? How was it? Or, did you like the food? Did you like the food? Or, was it your first time there? Was it your first time there? Again, the conversation grows naturally. Now let me show you something very important. Follow-up questions are usually short and simple. You do not need long sentences. Sometimes you can simply say, "Why? Really? How? Where? When? With who?" These small questions are conversation gold. Let's imagine a learner conversation. A learner says, "I like music." Another learner says, "Oh," and the conversation dies. But a fluent speaker says, "Oh, what kind of music? Who is your favorite singer? When do you usually listen to music? Do you listen when you study?" Each question opens a new door. Now let's talk about something very common. Many learners say, "I don't know what to ask." But the truth is simple. Just ask about what you hear. Listen carefully, then use it. If someone says, "I'm really tired," you can say, "Why? Did you work a lot? Did you sleep well?" Someone says, "I'm really happy today." You can ask, "Why? What happened? That's great. What made you happy?" This is natural conversation. Okay, now let's connect this to freezing. When learners freeze, it is often because they are thinking. They are thinking, "What sentence should I say?" But fluent speakers think differently. They think, "What can I ask about what I just heard?" This changes everything because you do not need to invent a topic. The topic is already there. The other person gives you the topic. Your job is only to follow it. Now let's practice a longer example. Imagine this conversation. Person A says, "I just started a new job." Person B says, "Oh, really? What kind of job?" Person A says, "I work in marketing." Person B says, "That sounds interesting. What do you do exactly?" Person A says, "I work with social media." Person B says, nice. Do you enjoy it? Person A says, yes, but it is stressful sometimes. Person B says, I see. Um, why is it stressful? Person A says, because there are deadlines. And then person B says, yeah, deadlines can be hard. You see, there is no magic vocabulary. There is no complex grammar. Only interest and simple questions. This is the conversation engine at work. Now, let's do something together. I will give you a sentence, and you imagine a follow-up question, okay? Ready? Someone says, I'm studying engineering. What would you say? I give you 20 seconds. Great. You can ask, why did you choose engineering? Or, do you like it? Or, is it difficult? Here is another one. Someone says, I love traveling. What would you say? Again, I give you 20 seconds. Great. You can ask, where have you been? Or, where do you want to go next? Or, do you prefer cities or nature? You see how easy this is? Now another one. Someone says, I don't like mornings. What would you say? I give you 20 seconds. Okay. You can ask, why not? Or, oh, really? Are you not a morning person? Or, what time do you wake up? This is how you keep conversations alive. Not by speaking more, but by asking better. Okay, now we talk about another strategy. It's repeating or using part of what the other person says. This is another powerful way to keep conversations flowing naturally. But for now, remember this. When you feel stuck in a conversation, do not panic. Do not change the topic. Do not become silent. Just ask something about what you just heard. All right. You can also repeat their words, or you change them slightly, and then you continue. This may sound simple, but it is one of the strongest conversation skills you can have. Why? Because repeating what the other person has just said shows that you are really listening. And people love that. Let's look at a simple example. Someone says, I work in a restaurant. I work in a restaurant. A learner might say, oh, and that's it. But a fluent speaker mirrors. A fluent speaker repeats what the other person has just said. They say, a restaurant? That sounds busy. Or, oh, you work in a restaurant? What do you do there? Or, a restaurant, nice. Do you like it? See what happened? The word restaurant came back in the reply. This makes the conversation feel connected and natural. Now another example. Someone says, I'm learning English. You can say, learning English? That's great. How long have you been learning? Or, English, nice. Do you study every day? So, you are using their word, English. Now let's go deeper. Repeating what the other person says is also about repeating meaning. Someone says, I'm tired today. You can say, tired today? Did you sleep well? Or you could say, you sound tired. Was it a long day? You're not only repeating the word tired, you are showing that you understand their feeling. This makes the conversation warmer, more human. Now let's look at another example. Someone says, I love traveling. You can say, you love traveling? That's awesome. Where did you go last? Or, traveling is great. Do you prefer cities or nature? Again, you take their idea and build on it. Now let me show you something very important. When you repeat part of what they say, your brain gets a few seconds to think. This is very useful when you freeze. Instead of becoming silent, you can say, so, you live in Paris. Or, oh, so you said you work in IT. Or, you mentioned you like music. This keeps the conversation alive while your brain prepares the next sentence. Now let's practice with some longer examples. Person A says, I just moved to this city. Person B says, you just moved here? How do you like it so far? Person A says, it's nice, but a bit expensive. Person B says, expensive, yeah. Which part is the most expensive? Person A says, the city center. Person B says, the city center, yes, it's always expensive. Look at this conversation. Repeating happened again and again. Just moved. Expensive. City center. These words keep coming back, and this makes the conversation flow naturally. It's simple, but it is very powerful. Now let's talk about a common problem learners have. Many learners think they must always say something new. They think repeating words is bad. But in real conversations, repetition is natural. Native speakers repeat words all the time. They say, really? Yeah, really. Exactly. Right. I know. These are also forms of repetition. They show agreement. They show understanding. Now let's look at small repetition examples. You can say, really? Is that so? Right. I see. Got it. These are small, but they keep the conversation alive. All right, now let's connect repetition to freezing again. When you freeze, it is often because you do not know what to say next. Repetition gives you something to say immediately. You can always repeat or use part of what you just heard. This means you are never completely empty. Let's practice together. Someone says, I like cooking. You can say, cooking? Nice. What do you like to cook? Or, you like cooking. Do you cook every day? Someone says, I don't like coffee. You can say, you don't like coffee? What do you drink then? Or, no coffee? Really? Someone says, I'm nervous about my exam. You can say, nervous about your exam? When is it? Or, oh, your exam is coming? I hope it goes well. So, repetition and then expanding. Let's talk about tone. Repetition is not only about words, it is also about tone. If someone is excited, your voice can show excitement too. If someone is sad, your voice can be softer. This is really important. It gives you connection. It gives you natural flow and confidence. Now let's combine follow-up questions and repetition. Someone says, I'm learning English. You can say, learning English? That's great. Why are you learning? So here you repeated learning English and then asked a follow-up question. This is how the conversation engine works smoothly. Okay, now I want to talk about expansion phrases. Expansion phrases are short phrases that help you say more without thinking too much. Expansion means making something bigger, making something more detailed. These phrases help you add information. They help you explain. They help you continue speaking even when your ideas are simple. All right, let's look at some very common and powerful expansion phrases. You can say, I think, I feel, I like it because, it's good, but, it's interesting, but, for example, well, it depends. So these phrases are simple, but they give you space to speak more. Let's look at a couple of examples. Someone says, do you like living here? You can say, yeah, I like it because the people are friendly. Or, yeah, I like it, but it is a bit expensive. Now, another example. Someone says, what do you do in your free time? You can say, I usually watch movies. Or, I like reading because it helps me relax. Or, sometimes I go out with friends. Each answer uses an expansion phrase. Now let's practice with more situations. Someone says, how was your weekend? You can say, it was good because I met some friends. Or, it was relaxing. I slept a lot. Or, it was busy, but I enjoyed it. You do not need long stories. You just need one small extra sentence. That is enough to keep a conversation going. Okay, and that's it for today's episode. Remember, the conversation engine is not only about English. It is about communication. A good communication is the heart of fluency. Before we finish, let me ask you something. Next time you speak English, what will you do differently? Will you stay silent when you feel stuck? Or will you ask one more simple question? Will you freeze when your mind is empty? Or will you say, well, let me think? Will you try to sound perfect? Or will you try to sound real? Real English is not perfect English. It is alive English. And now you have the tools to keep it alive. Thank you for listening to another episode of English Unleashed. If you enjoyed this episode, please let me know. And remember, conversations are not built by words alone. They are built by interest, attention, and courage. Until next time, keep speaking, keep connecting, and keep unleashing your English. Bye for now.